Hi, in this video, we're going to take a quick look at broadcast domains and how hosts determine, or any device with an IP address determines what network it belongs to. And this is all going to make sense why we're looking at this as we introduce the concept of VLANs, virtual local area networks. Okay, it's important to understand how a switch forwards frames. First, it's got to build its MAC address table, and it does that by examining the source MAC address. If it's not in the table, it adds it along with the ingress port number. If it is in the table already, then it just updates the timer. So it forwards frames by examining the destination MAC address. If it's not in the table, it sends it out all ports, known as an unknown unicast. So it floods it out all ports except for the incoming port. Okay, eventually switches learn about where the MAC addresses are by receiving frames from that device, so it can actually just filter those frames going out a specific port towards that device. Okay, so we see here that the switch has eventually learned where quad A and quad B both are, so it doesn't have to do any unknown unicast flooding. Well, how about a broadcast? Well, broadcast, a switch will always flood those frames out, all ports except the incoming port. And routers, however, it's important to note, do not forward layer 2 broadcasts. Yep. So that's where the broadcast domain ends, is at the router. Okay, so it's also important as we go into begin to understand VLANs, virtual local area networks, how hosts determine what network they belong to. Remember, devices live in a bubble. The only thing they know about the network is what their configuration tells them. Okay, so can host A send a packet to host B? Well, host A says, I know what network I belong to. I have my IPv4 address. I have my subnet mask. I do an bitwise AND operation. That tells me what network I belong to. Now, it doesn't know the mask of B. So A says, I know the destination IPv4 address, the device I'm trying to reach. I know my subnet mask, and if we are on the same IPv4 network, then we have the same subnet mask. So I'll use my subnet mask, do an AND operation using my subnet mask. And in this case, both bitwise AND operations result in the same network address. So A says, oh, you know what, I can reach B. So I can just encapsulate this packet in an Ethernet frame and send it directly to B. Now, what if A was trying to reach C, and C is on a different IPv4 network? Okay, well, A, first of all, uses its subnet mask and its IPv4 address, does the bitwise AND operation, determines what network it belongs to, knows the destination IPv4 address, and again, uses A's subnet mask, does a bitwise AND operation, and it results in different network addresses. Now, it doesn't really know if this network down here, 192.168.20.0, is the network C is on, because it doesn't know its mask. Remember, it's using its own mask. But what it does know is that we are not on the same IPv4 network. And the only way I can get there, send a packet from me to C, is to send that packet to my default gateway, the router. Okay, just a note about IPv6, because actually IPv6 works something a little differently. The way a host determines what network it belongs to, it actually receives an ICMP v6 router advertisement message from the router. In this router advertisement message is the prefix and prefix length, and also something known as the on link or L flag. When the L flag is set for this prefix, which it is by default, the host knows this is the prefix I belong to, the network I belong to. A little bit different than IPv4. Okay, so why are we talking about all of this? Broadcast domains and what networks we belong to and that sort of thing. Because we're going to take a look at what happens in scenarios like this. We're going to talk about this when we get into the VLANs in the next set of videos. But if you take a look here, we have 4 devices connected to the same switch. We have A and B belonging to one subnet and C and D belonging to another subnet. Which devices can talk to which? Can we actually do this? Certainly. So in the upcoming videos, we'll take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of doing this and how we can actually segment something called the broadcast domains with VLANs. Okay, so that'll be in our next video.